I'm going to finish up my series today on choices that we make, and we've been talking about Joseph. Now, remember last time Joseph's buddies jacked him. Remember that? We were talking about Joseph was in prison, and he told these guys, he said, now I'm going to tell you these dreams, and you're fixing to get out of prison in 3 days. When you get out, don't forget me. And he's probably like, I'm telling you, man, don't forget me. You hear what I'm saying? Don't forget. I mean, like, that's the way I would have been anyway. So what they do? Well, they got out, and the baker lost his head, and literally. And the cupbearer, the wine server, the bartender for the king, for Pharaoh, he was restored back to his job. But the Bible says that as soon as they were restored, man, they forgot what got them out in the first place. They forgot about Joseph. The next verse says, and 2 full years passed. 2 full years passed. Now, I'm a pretty easygoing fella, but 2 full years, chapter 41 in Genesis, if you want to write that down. I'm not going to read it to you because, well, frankly, y'all get bored and your eyes glaze over when I start reading to you. So, like, you're going to have to read it for yourself. It's in Genesis. That's way at the front. You can find it. Just go to the front and find 41 and you'll be there. But what happened after 2 full years? I would have been like stewing for 2 full years, man. I mean, think about getting jacked and being left in prison for 2 more full years. I'd have been carving names in the walls and dates, like, and how you're going to die. When Ella draws dead people, she always puts X's on their eyes. I'd have had that all over my prison walls. X. I'm coming for you, wine boy. I mean, I'd have been sending messages out. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. Anyway, Joseph stays in prison. After 2 full years, though, something happens. Pharaoh has a dream, and in his dream, it's a weird dream, man. It's like Pharaoh is eating acid for dinner. He has a dream. And in this dream, man, there was like 7 big, fat, plump, awesome cows. And then there's 7 scraggly, nasty, bony, dirty, the Bible actually uses the word ugly cows. And the 7 ugly cows rise up and eat the 7 big, fat, healthy, beautiful cows. Never seen that before. I've never seen a cow that could eat so much meat. One of my gifts this Christmas was a gift card to Texas de Brazil. Anybody ever been? All you can eat meat. They got a salad bar. I think it's just to take up space in the front. Why? I won't even go there. Salad is what my food eats. All you can eat meat, man. And you can eat so much meat that it hurts. I mean, it hurts bad. But you won't stop because it's so good. You got these little cards on your table, and one side's red and the other side's green. And when it's on green, man, people keep coming by with these sticks and these big machetes and just hacking you off meat on your plate. Now, for some reason, they brought me a bowl of mashed potatoes. And I'm going to have to tell you up front, those things didn't even get the crust on top broke. I didn't even pretend I was going to eat them. Like usually, like in Mom's house, you always put them on your plate and pretend, and then you smash them around. And no, man, didn't even mess with it. So I'm thinking, I know a little bit about eating meat, but I'm thinking this is a pretty weird dream. This is a dream you have when you know you have a Texas de Brazil gift card. So it's easy to interpret nowadays. But for them, no one could interpret this dream. Pharaoh has another dream. This dream's even weirder. In this dream, Pharaoh dreams that he has this wheat, and this wheat is great, and it's the best, and it's beautiful, and I don't know why you'd want wheat, but because you got meat. But he has beautiful wheat, and then this other wheat rises up, and it's nasty and scraggly, and it's just like stalks. And that wheat devours the good wheat. So he calls all of his magicians and all of his fortune tellers and all his people in. He calls them in and he says, interpret my dream for me. And nobody could do it. Now I imagine Pharaoh wasn't like, oh, that's okay, guys. He's like, what do I pay you for? You know, I mean, it's probably a very nervous thing. Now here's me. If I didn't know, I'd make something up. Be like, that dream means you got a gift card to the local Egyptian de Brazil. But that wasn't what happened. He couldn't figure it out, and it troubled him badly. And then the bartender shows up and says, oh, man, I forgot. My bad. Justice says, my bad. I said, saying my bad after everything doesn't make it okay. Just because you say my bad, don't fix it, right? So the bartender, the cupbearer shows up and says, my bad. There was this guy who actually, remember the day you chopped off and hung the baker? Remember when you hung him by his neck and the birds ate his flesh? That day, this guy in prison told me that was going to happen. And he told me I would be restored, and I was. He told me everything. So Pharaoh's like, well, let's get this guy up here. So they called Joseph out of the pit, it says. Now, I'd have a bad attitude coming out of the pit, I'm just telling you, but Joseph shaves, cleans up, changes his clothes, and appears before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh says, I hear that you can interpret dreams. And he says, my God knows all dreams. He's the one who interprets dreams. And Pharaoh's like, I don't care about that stuff. I want to know what this dream means. So he tells Joseph to dream, and Joseph tells him, he says, here's what the dream means. For 7 years, we're going to have plenty. We're going to have so much food, so much fat, cows, beef, steak. We are going to eat like kings. But then for the next 7 years, we're going to be in famine like we have never, ever seen before. Now that's good information, right? Joseph says, here's what you need to do. You need to set back 1/5 of everything you have in the times of plenty, and it will sustain you through the times where you don't have. That sounds like a good idea, guys. Now, you can interpret the Bible any way you want to. You can read stuff into it. But I'm telling you this, there's a principle there that in times of plenty, if we will live within margins, and obviously 20%, a fifth, is a good margin, right? In times of plenty, where you're going to have like you've never had. Because I've seen in our nation, I've seen this happen in my lifetime, in the last few years, that we had times of plenty. And those times of plenty went away. And when there was times of plenty, man, we spent like there was no tomorrow, right? But then when the times of famine come, what do? Well, we want the government to step in and save us. But then the government is us. They don't save either. It's plenty, man. Let's go. It just sounds like a good principle. That's a whole sidebar. That don't cost you nothing. It's not part of even what I'm talking about today. I just thought it was kind of a good thing, you know? I know I could learn from that. So if I could, I know you guys could, because like you know. So this feast comes on the land of Egypt. The dream starts to come true. And Pharaoh puts Joseph, because God's hands on Joseph. Remember Joseph's attitude, how Joseph was? He never changed who he was created to be. No matter what his circumstance was, he was faithful to God through whatever. And in his circumstance, he coming out of prison, instead of being bitter and resentful and like, man, I ain't helping you, Jack. You know, I mean, that's like a little rebellious. I would have been probably more on that, but he doesn't. And God honors Joseph because Joseph stays honorable to God. And Pharaoh puts him in charge of everything. And he oversees this whole thing. Now remember, what was Joseph's destiny? What was his dream? What was his vision? Who was he created to be? When he was 17 years old, who was Joseph shown that he was? That he was not just the ruler over all of his nation, but that would bow down to him and serve him. And he was the youngest. And so this had been in his heart. And this is what got him in the hot water in the first place. Why his brothers sold him into slavery. It's how he ended up in Egypt. All of these things started. All of these troubles and trials and these highs and lows and mountains and valleys all started there. And Pharaoh now has him in charge of everything. And man, it goes according to plan. It's perfect. Pharaoh puts Joseph in his number 2 chariot. And this thing was decked out too. I imagine like it had spinners on it. It was lowered. The chariot. It's awesome. And he ordered that everywhere he went, people bow down to him. That's just what he dreamed. That the sun and the moon and the stars bowed down to him, bowed down before him. Now, this wasn't because of anything Joseph did. It was because this is who God created him to be. And he never, look at his life, he never took credit for it. He never said, I deserve this or I should be this. Whatever was given him, he did, with God on his side, because he honored God in spite of his circumstance. And everything he did, he was promoted and raised up. Then he came down again, right? Good things happened and bad things happened, but it never changed who Joseph was created to be. It never changed him. Now, I'm sure, because you can read between the lines, I'm sure in these times there were bad days, and like you had bad days, I had bad days, but for the most part of his life, this is his attitude. So what happens is the famine comes over the whole world. And guess who shows up in Egypt? The brothers. You know the brothers. No matter how bad they treat you, they're always going to show back up. And they show up in Egypt because they hear that Egypt is the only place in the whole world that has food. You could say it like this: Joseph saved the world. Right? Because if Egypt didn't have food, then what? Joseph saved the world, and his brothers show up. And man, you got to go back and you got to read this, because it's pretty intense. Joseph, man, he jacks with them a little bit, but it's good jacking. So, you kind of you can't just let them off. Yeah. It's good. But Joseph tells them to go back and bring their father. Now, their father's old. And Jacob, whose name is what? Israel, right? Remember? Jacob, Israel, comes from, Canaan, which is what? Israel. Israel comes from Israel to Egypt. And he brings the whole family. And as the story breaks down and it goes, he takes care of the whole family, and they eventually find out who he is, and he saves his whole family. He saves his whole family. And now he's the ruler over his family. But his father dies in Egypt. And now the brothers are nervous. Because as long as Dad's alive, Joseph's not going to whack us. But then now that Dad's gone, we're going all soprano. I mean, somebody's getting whacked. Somebody's got to pay, right? And this is just the most coolest. I mean, you shouldn't say that ever. This is like the most awesome part of the story, though. And this is the way it concludes in Genesis chapter 50. In Genesis chapter 50, verse 18, it says, the brothers also came and fell down before him and said, behold, we are your servants. Wow. Man, that's been a long time coming. Think of all he's been through and all that he's put up with and all that he's bared through his whole life. And here he is in this place. And Joseph said to them, off with your heads. Cool. That's not what it says. I was just kidding. Oh, blew it. He said to them, do not fear, for I am in the place of God. Do not fear, because I am where God intended for me to be all along. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. And as Joseph saved the world. Amazing. This is my favorite story. That's not a good story. Somebody should make a movie. But not a cheesy one, man. Not one of those, like Star Wars effect awesomeness of movie. I'd like to see it with like modern day people. I don't want people in robes. Nobody watches movies with people in sandals. Like today this happens. You put yourself in this story. I like to do that. I'd like to see it. That'd be so cool. I think it's just the greatest story ever. After all of that went on, man, I just see this upbeat dude. And I can't help but think of Joe Dirt. Lost the garden, dig it. You can't have no in your heart. You just see the upbeat positive no matter what happens and what he goes through. But then in the end, he ends up right where he should have been all along. Maybe that was the story of Joseph. You didn't know that, did you? I think about stuff like that. It's true, though. So here's what we can conclude from the story, in my opinion. I think we see through this story that there were a million choices that Joseph could have made. And as we look at our lives, and as our lives pass, I think there's a million choices that you and I can make. Every day, we have a choice. I thought about this a lot last night. I thought, how do we feel about ourselves, about our situation or circumstance? How do we feel? I look at myself sometimes, not all the time, but I look at myself sometimes and I think to myself, who you see and who my circumstance is, that's not who I am. That's not what I really feel inside. And I think a lot of times we find ourselves, especially when we're in those pits, we look around and we say, this is not me. You may see all of this going on, but this really isn't me. I was meant for more than this. Who I really am inside is different than this. If you just knew me, like I'm not a prisoner. I'm a good person. I'm not a junkie. I'm a good person. I'm not this thing you see in the circumstance. I'm different than this. If you just only knew who I really was. And we scream out and we beg and we cry out for a second chance, just a second try, a do-over. If I could just get out of this place, I could show you who I was created to be. And the thing we have going on that we don't always realize is that God is there with us all the time saying, I believe in you. I believe in you. I know who you were created to be. I am for you, not against you. And the circumstances that you're in, you have the wrong perspective. I'm taking you somewhere. I'm building something. I'm doing something. Hang in there. Hang in there. I am for you. I'm not against you. Trust in me. I have plans, those plans that are deep, deep inside you that may be masked over by this point in your life, by all the trials and the troubles and the tribulations, all the tests. But if you will hang in there, who you are right now and where you are right now is not where you're going to end up. I'm for you. Man, there's no words that mean more to me than this, that God is for me, not against me. Because I'm telling you, man, there's days where it doesn't seem like it, right? But you can be honest in here. It's cool. There are days where it doesn't seem like it. And every single day I have a choice. I can continue to live as God created me to be, that person who He placed inside me, that vision that He gave me in my youth, that spirit that's drawing me and driving me. I can be that person, or I can become my circumstance. I can be broke. You cannot have any money and still be wealthy. Did you know that? There's this verse where it says, all things are mine. Paul, he says, all things are mine because all things are my Father's. I can be rich and be broke. I can be down but not out. Being addicted is not who you are. It's not who you were created to be. It's not your destiny. Addiction is a choice. And addicts lie and tell you it's not. And if you're an addict, you know I'm telling the truth. One to another. You lie to yourself and you lie to everybody else and you say, I have to, I can't. But that's not who you were created to be. That's your circumstance. And we make that choice. And the reason I know that is because I know many people who have chose a different path. Is it easy? It's harder than hell, literally. You got to change everything. You have to have new friends. You have to have a new life. You have to live a different life. You have to surround yourself with different people. You have to make different choices. You have to go different places. You have to listen to different things. You have to change everything because any little thing is waiting there to hook you back into that life. Am I right? Let me hear it from you, addicts. Am I right? Am I telling you the truth? It's all out there to pull you back into that pit. But that's not who you were created to be. That is not your destiny. Do you know that you are a child of the Most High God and God's children are not addicts? We have a choice. We can live depressed. I suffer from depression. You know why? I'm going to be honest with you. And everybody that's here suffering from depression, you're a liar like me. Because you choose it. I choose it because it's easier than the alternative. It's easier than choosing happiness. It's easier than choosing a different way. It's easy. It feels good. It's natural. But that's not who you're created to be. And so we tell everybody, oh, it's a chemical, it's this, it's that. We make 1,000 excuses. I just can't escape from it. I just need help. No, we're lying. I lie, you lie, we lie about it because then we get the pity that we want. We get the attention that we want. You didn't know you'd get kicked in the teeth today, did you? Like, this ain't fun, right? Because we don't want our friends, we don't want our family, we don't want everybody around us to know that I am who I choose to be. When do we ever take responsibility for our own lives? I am who I am because of the choices I make in my life. You are who you are because of your choices. Bad things happen to everybody. Everybody. You are not alone. You are not alone. Bad things happen. Look at Joseph, man. I doubt if any of that stuff's ever happened to any of you. Bad things happen. Did God ever take his hand off of Joseph? And he will never take his hand off of you. Ever. I was shopping, not by choice. I was shopping. We went in this store. I don't remember which store it was. One of those weird fancy stores. And Ella was getting something, a skirt. And crazy. It was crazy after Christmas, and we went to check out. And we're standing there, and there's these two, I don't know if they were teenagers, but they were young, maybe 20, but I doubt it. And I told Celia, this is what's wrong with the world. No, I did say that, but that's not what this is about. There was these two girls. And here's the problem that we have, and I'm being as serious as I can be. One girl, the register over here, there's people just lined up. It's crazy. It's chaos. And this girl checks these people out, and they leave. But this other girl is, while she's checking out, this other girl's behind her taking the alarm tags off the clothes. And then, so it's kind of like this thing that's going on. Well, this girl turns around and the people that were checking out had gone, and she's like, they didn't get their sweater. And I'm not kidding, they stood there for about 5 minutes arguing on whose fault it was, while the person's walking out the door. I mean, they hadn't even left the store before they realized it, and they're not my fault, not my bad. It was this crazy thing where nobody wanted to take responsibility. And I was thinking, I just wanted to say, I did very well. Because I was like to just reach over the counter and go, hey, if y'all had stopped, they're still right there. You can give it to them. Instead, we want to stand here and argue about whose fault it is. We cannot function in this world. We can't do logical things because we're so worried about whose fault it is. We're looking for someone else to blame. I'm this way because of them, or because of that, or because of my parents, or because of this. When we live that way, we live in prison, in bitterness, and rage, and in unforgiveness, and our lives will never become what we were intended to be. Joseph saved the world because he got over his circumstance. Your choice. This year, today, it's a new year. We get to start over, right? The choice you have before you is you and I can take responsibility for our own lives, and we can make the changes that need to be made to walk out the life we were intended to walk in. Or not. That's it. That's it. You can take responsibility and say, I am who I am and the way I am because of the choices that I make, and I'm making different choices. You can stay ticked off. You can stay bitter. You can stay unforgiving. You can stay blamed. You can stay down. You can stay depressed, or you can just get glad. Let it go. Let it go. Maybe right now you're in the middle of a crap storm. I know the feeling. I wish I could tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, but I don't know in my own life what's going to happen tomorrow. But today I get to choose. And I'm going to learn from my past, and I'm going to make better choices today than I did yesterday. I'm going to take responsibility for where I'm at right now. It's not anybody's fault. Whatever my life is what it is because of the lump sum of all of the decisions I've ever made. It just is what it is. But I don't intend to stay there. I'm going to make the decision and the choice to be happy. I'm going to make the decision and the choice to live in peace. I'm going to make the decision and the choice to do what it is that I was created to do, and I don't care what other decisions were in my past or whoever's fault it was, because there's a list of people that I could blame. Starting over. It's a new year. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's just start. Let's start making better choices. Let's get out of our circumstance. Let's quit let's stop letting our circumstance dictate who we are. You weren't created to be who your circumstance says you are. And you know that. You already know that. So it's time to break out of that circumstance and live and be who you were created to be. You got to stand up with me. I want to pray for you.